Today, I'm here to provide the best tips and tricks to complete this week's Grandmaster Nightfall, which is the PsiOps Moon Battleground. Today's guide will feature the best tips, tricks, and loadouts to complete this Grandmaster Nightfall easily. So without wasting any more time, let's hop into the guide. Let's hop into loadouts. For this GM, your team is going to want to focus hard on having crowd control supers and add clear weapons. My team ran Wish Ender and Blinding Grenade launchers in our primary slot. For the secondary, I ran Forbearance once again because of the Arc Singe, and I'd highly recommend you do the same. Risk Runner could also be a decent option here for the exotic perk and damage resistance, but if you want a simple add clear weapon, then Forbearance is your answer. For heavy weapons, we found a lot of success in heavy machine guns, but you could run Linears here for boss DPS. For class composition, Void and Strand Hunters will do well here. Void and Stasis Warlocks will do well here, and Strand Titans will have a field day with this strike. For mods, run Arc Resistance and Concussive Dampener for the boss fight. With that being said, let's get to the tips. For the opening encounter, there are two main tips that I want to give to make this run a little bit easier. The first tip is to actually kill champions first. For some reason, champions would despawn much faster than in other strikes, which actually caused my team to lose out on platinum. So to avoid this, have your team kill the champions before the other adds so that you don't lose out on platinum. For the second tip, after you've killed the first wave of adds and champions and you're moving on to the second structure, have your team focus the hive ship turrets, as they do hurt a lot and it's better to destroy them so that way you're not constantly going into cover after peeking out for a brief second. Other than that, make sure your team is chaining supers and utilizing Forbearance and other add clear weapons to make this area less of a chore. For the second encounter, my team found this to be the hardest part of the strike, but here's a way to make it easy. For starters, once your team has dunked the first tribute, have your team use the opposite side of where you came in for cover. You will get a barrier and unstoppable champion when you dunk, but using the area that I'm using will make dealing with adds much easier. The second tip for making this area easier is understanding add spawns. Throughout the entire fight, you'll have a pretty constant spawn of Acolytes and Thrall, and these adds won't disappear until the encounter is done for, so there's no need in trying to kill all adds. If you absolutely need to, then go for it, but your team will waste a lot of time in the strike if you just try to keep killing adds, as that's what happened with my team. Regarding other add spawns, there are various adds to pay attention to, such as Champions, Hive Guardians, Tribute Wizards, and Shriekers. Champions seem to spawn in every 6 tributes dunked, but they were spawning in a different pattern, then let me know in the comments below. The Hive Guardians and Shriekers spawn every 4 patterns dunked, so once your team deposits 4, take out the Shriekers and then the Hive Guardians, who will spawn on the left and right altars. The Tribute Wizards will spawn all throughout the fight with a maximum of 3 spawning in at a time, so use that information as you will. We had our Void Hunter take and dunk the tributes since they could go easily invisible, but have your team do what they will for this encounter. Other than that, there's not much more to say here. Just make sure you're doing some add clear, moving around a good amount, and dunking tributes, and you'll be fine. For the boss fight, my team stayed in the further part of the bridge to take the boss into the other realm. If your team chooses to do this strategy, then be careful with how far back you hold, as a Shrieker can spawn behind you and will wreck your team if you're not careful. Once you're transported into the other realm, have your team set up stasis turrets and a tether somewhere, as you'll get abilities back once you start the fight. As soon as the fight started, my team would hop up to the left side high ground, assuming you're facing where the boss spawns. You don't need to be sitting on the left side high ground, but I'd highly recommend having your team sit on one of the 2 high grounds, as it'll make killing adds and damaging the boss easier. Once the boss goes immune, you'll need to kill the Savathun projections. My recommendation is for your team to kill most adds including the champions, and then have everyone grab a spear and throw them at Savathun. Savathun is very tanky in this strike, and having one person take her down will take a long time since it takes 4 or 5 full spears to kill her. Your team will also want to be careful, as she does similar amounts of damage to that of the Light Blade, so make sure your team doesn't peek at Savathun if they don't need to. Once it comes down to time to killing Savathun again, you'll have 2 Savathuns to kill, but you'll have 2 different spear locations, with them being on the far left and far right sides of the arena. Once the Savathuns are dead, your team can melt the boss since there are no more champs that will spawn in. Melting the boss will grant you an easy completion of the PsiOps Moon Grandmaster. Well, that'll wrap up this guide. If you found it helpful, drop a like and consider subscribing to the channel for more Destiny content dropping weekly. If you want more content from me, then consider stopping by the streams that happen right here on YouTube. Otherwise, follow me on my social media platforms linked below. With that being said, I'm SniperKH, and I'm out. Good luck with gaming.